President Trump rides the highs and lows of diplomatic waves. Attorney General Jeff Sessions stands down from the Affordable Care Act. And Illinois Speaker of the House Michael Madigan plays the denial game on sexual harassment when it touches close to home. They're all things we'll talk about this morning with Democratic political consultant Porter McNeil and former Rock Island County Republican Party Chair Bill Bloom. Great to see you both again as well.
Good to see you, Jim.
It's good to be here.
I want to begin with Michael Madigan. His chief of staff, Tim Mapes, resigned under pressure about a week and a half ago. That's after an employee in the House of Representatives came forward with allegations against Mapes of sexual harassment. In February, Madigan aide Kevin Quinn was fired for similar allegations in both cases. Madigan essentially denied knowing anything about the behavior before the allegations went public. There are independent investigations for both as well. What does it say about Madigan if he didn't know this was happening in his office, and how much are Democrats in Illinois risking their credibility by keeping him in his powerful position? This is a Democratic question primarily here, Porter. What do you think?
Well, listen, anytime you have this kind of news, it's not good. It's not good for any political party. It's not good for Speaker Madigan's career at this time. He's under a lot of focus, and the question will be how quickly he can demonstrate changing the culture of Springfield and the culture in his office. Tim Mapes was let go immediately. That was a good move. But this is a national movement, and the question for a lot of people will be, can you change quickly enough?
And Democrats try to maintain the high road on something like this, but with this happening so close in Madigan's office, it's not a good look for him. And it's like the whole "what did you know and when did you know it" comes up with him.
Right. So we'll see how this evolves. But how he's handled the matters that have been brought to his attention, he acted quickly. The question is, is there more news? Is there more bad news? And how quickly can he change from his own office the culture surrounding him in Springfield and the office?
Red meat for Bill Bloom here for sure.
Well, the first thing I would say is ever since the Me Too movement got going, there has been comments and some fairly left-leaning newsletters like Illinois Politico talking about allegations of sexual impropriety in Speaker Madigan's office. And for the last year they've been saying, where is Madigan on this, and how come nobody's really challenging him on these issues?
Is there, just quickly, are the Democrats putting a lot of risk by standing by Madigan? This is really a more Democratic focus.
Well, I think we'll see how the next few months unfold. I mean, it's June, and the election's in November, but he has to demonstrate and convince people of change, and the jury's out on that, I think.
All right, let's move on to a different topic. A recent move coming from the Department of Justice didn't get a ton of coverage. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced his department won't defend the Affordable Care Act against lawsuits challenging the health care law. Now there are more than a dozen states run by Democrats that can argue for the law if the Justice Department won't, though clearly this is a move by the Trump administration to try to kill the law. Provisions like the individual mandate and pre-existing condition protections could be at risk. How much will this become a political issue for the midterm elections? What do you think, Bill?
Well, obviously health care will always be an issue at some level. My personal opinion is that the Affordable Care Act basically missed its goal of affordable care, and that by imposing a lot of requirements and a lot of additional costs on insurance companies actually drove insurance companies out of health care insurance. And so if Trump can lead them towards a more free market focused solution, I think you might actually see health care drop in costs.
What do you think here, Porter?
Well, my concern is it won't be affordable care if the president strips a provision like covering pre-existing conditions. Mm-hmm. I think that's really key for keeping America healthy and keeping costs down. So I think it'll become a political issue if he continues to move in that direction. And so we'll see healthcare prices go up and access denied. I don't think that's a move in the right direction.
There's no argument that premiums have been continuing to rise, but I guess the argument is that they haven't been rising as fast as they were before the Affordable Care Act for a lot of people. And then people who couldn't get coverage were able to get coverage. And so, yes, it's more expensive for a lot of people, but it's also affordable for some people. So there was a trade-off in this law, wasn't there?
Well, I think there was very high deductibles on a lot of plans. So somebody could get a plan, but the deductibles were so high that they weren't really able to take advantage of it. And you also had major health care providers like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Iowa announcing that they were going to, I think about 2 years ago, they announced that they were going to stop taking additional clients in Iowa because of the cost of the Affordable Care Act. So if you're taking huge providers out of the supply of insurance providers, you're actually going to end up driving the cost up, not down.
President Trump came back to Washington, D.C. after a busy week of travel. The biggest stop was Singapore, where he became the first American president to meet with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. It was the photo op Kim relished to give himself some credibility on the global stage with the most powerful man in the world. The two leaders signed an agreement where North Korea would work toward denuclearization, and the United States agreed to stop conducting military exercises with South Korea. Now, several scholars say previous administrations actually got more concessions from North Korea, but let's not forget this communist country has broken all of those deals in the past. So what are the takeaways for the two of you here? What do you think, Borda?
Well, I think it's early. I think it's good to meet with North Korea. So credit there where credit's due. But, you know, tweets aren't policy. I find it an amazing double standard that the president spent 2 years undermining the provisions of the Iran nuclear deal, saying that various aspects weren't verifiable. But now he's applauding this without any details. There's no guarantee of reducing the nuclear stockpiles in North Korea. So I think it's early. I think it's kind of early to pat each other on the back.
Bill?
Well, there are no details. That's true. It's not a treaty yet. Basically, what we have is signed an agreement, a commitment that
To
they
keep
will
talking,
work towards
perhaps, right?
denuclearize the entire Korean peninsula, which is a step forward. And the devil will be in the details, will be in verification. And but I think it's a good first step. I got to give the president credit. He has used everything from putting 2 aircraft carrier battle groups off the Korean peninsula and using stealth aircraft in practice military maneuvers with South Korea to actually paying compliments to the dictator of North Korea.
Yeah, any worry about that the compliments to Kim Jong-un? I mean, this isn't the most wonderful man in the world.
No, he's as popular as
That's
Muammar Gaddafi, I guess.
Oh.
But you know, I think that we need to look at all the options when it comes to this guy. And what ultimately, if we get rid of nuclear weapons, if we get rid of the batteries of artillery aimed at Seoul, then this will have been a highly successful endeavor.
A lot of ifs there. Before Singapore, the president went to Canada for a summit with the group of 7 industrialized nations, our biggest allies. He pushed to return it to the G8 by including Russia. The president also criticized Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau while he was there. This photo of Angela Merkel leaning over to the president with his arms crossed, flanked by the other leaders, will be the enduring image of this summit, perhaps. What will be the impact of U.S. foreign policy if we're embracing North Korea, calling Kim Jong-un talented? The president saluted a North Korean soldier we saw recently, praises Russia and Vladimir Putin, while potentially alienating our most valuable allies. Bill?
Well, I think his maneuver with Russia and the G7, I think sometimes he just throws things out there just to kind of upset the table a little bit and throw everybody off
It upsets a lot
their
of
game.
tables there.
Yeah, he certainly did. But actually, they were getting along very well. They had all agreed on a united statement until Prime Minister Trudeau basically threw a sort of a personal attack out against the president right at the end, just before they were going to release the statement. And that's never a good move President Trump does not react well to personal attacks, and I think that's what drove him to basically step back from supporting the protocol that he had actually helped write. But you know, at the end of the day, there's politics, and then there's which can be hardball, and then there's negotiations, and there's actual results, and we know who our allies are in the world.
What do you think about the impact on foreign policy by these recent developments with
Well, I think the G7 should be the G7, not the G1. And I think President Trump tends to make it about himself. And I think that might undermine the U.S. role in economic leadership as we take on Canada and embrace dictatorships. So it's a unique foreign policy. I'm concerned about our economic leadership as we alienate ourselves from allies.
Bill Bloom, Porter McNeil, we certainly appreciate your thoughts. That brings us to our question of the week. What are your impressions after the president's talks with Kim Jong-un and his activity at the G7 summit? Send your answer by email to fortherecord@whbf.com, or respond to this post on Facebook at the local 4 News WHBF TV page or on my page.